Practical Fish Keeping, February 2021. The Odd Story of Ropes and Knives. Oddballs are often considered tricky to keep and best avoided, but Jack Heathcote has kept more than his fair share and suggests two species to start your own collection of curiosity. Mention the term oddball to any new budding aquarist. Quite likely the first thoughts which pop into their head will be outrageous exotics with gigantic price tags requiring enormous courses and exacting water conditions. Or they may conjure up an image of some bizarre creature belonging in fairy tales, which lives behind a rock and ventures out only to bite its owner. In all fairness to the newcomer, these assumptions, when applied to some of the more unusual species, aren't far from the truth. However, there are a fair number of aquatic oddities that fit a much more average aquarium situation, while being a quirky alternative to the mainstream aquarium staples. Too many, experienced or otherwise, an oddball has to fit a few criteria before being referred to as such. The most obvious of these is appearance, whether that may be ugly, prehistoric, utterly bizarre, or anything else that may be different in the eye of the beholder. Swimming and locomotion also rank highly, with many oddballs not employing the typical thrust of the tail fin. Some factors can steer newcomers away from the oddest species, such as a requirement for a specialised diet or habitat, as well as unimaginable size and prohibitive cost. The aim of this article is to introduce two unique oddballs that have the benefits of quirkiness without being too difficult or pricey to keep. Breaking the myths. There are plenty of misconceptions about oddballs, and you'll often see these touted as a mantra on social media groups. For sure, some fish are demanding and awkward, but a good spread of aquarium oddities don't fall too far outside the conventional fishy thinking. Here are some of the more common myths applied to every unusual species. Need a colossal aquarium. Although a large aquarium is not always required, I still plug for an off-the-shelf 120cm tank as the minimum to have a realistic stab at the two species I'll be championing shortly. This will give you a manageable and stable 150 to 240 litres of water volume, depending on the tank's height. Remember that this is a minimum, and as always in fish keeping, the bigger is the better. Carry a high price. The cost of my preferred entry-level oddballs typically ranges between £6 to £15, and despite not being as easy to find as a neon tetra, you really shouldn't have to look too far. Any slightly left of centre store should carry, or at least be able to acquire, these fish for you. Have impossibly complex feeding requirements. Although the fish here are reluctant to accept flake, although they sometimes do, they'll certainly accept a whole wider range of easily obtained fresh and frozen foods, prawn, bloodworm, mysis, lungfish and earthworms, and can be weaned onto it without much difficulty. Are aggressive. These fish may show a little mild aggression amongst their own, but certainly nothing to give you headaches. Require solitary confinement. Only the most aggressive predators or highly nervous species need to be kept alone. Many of the oddballs readily on sale will, with carefully considered tank mates, fit into a broad community tank. And never on view. Many oddballs have a reputation for remaining hidden. While this can be the case with the nocturnal species, shy fish can be coaxed out by paying attention to your decoration and offering a fish a situation where they feel secure at all times. Dangerous. Some fish can mess you up. Electric eels and stingrays are prime examples of fish that can ruin your day. But a majority of aquarium oddballs on sale can do little more than stick a fin spine into you if you mishandle them. You're more at risk from an everyday aquarium catfish than you are from the two fish I'll introduce to you here. Are delicate to maintain. Both of the fish here are certainly not delicate and could even be referred to as hardy, provided that water chemistry extremes are avoided and good water quality is always provided. Sharpen up on knives. Now we can take a look at a couple of my favourite oddballs. Hailing from Africa and each happy to be kept with the other, a biotope could be created, as the two are sometimes found in the same waters where their natural ranges overlap. The first species is the African knifefish, Xenomystus nigri, which has a huge range encompassing a large portion of tropical Africa. Then the second species, the reed fish or rope fish, Herpetoichthys calabaricus, which has a somewhat smaller range. The African knifefish is considered nocturnal in nature, and during daylight hours it lurks in the natural hideouts that are abundant in its sluggish watery home. It's likely to be more active during the day if cover is plentiful, the water is deeper, and perhaps more silt-laden. Xenomystus is one of many fish that are electroreceptive, sensitive to electrical charges, such as those generated by muscle movements, that help it hunt in dark or murky water. It's an opportunistic feeder, and few grubs, larvae, or other waterborne animals are turned down. Movement is mainly provided by an undulating anal fin that connects to the caudal fin, giving it the ability to quickly reverse as fast backwards as it is forwards, and while it has pectoral fins, it has no dorsal or ventral fins. Most knifefish species are found in South America, with a few in Asia, but none are as easy to care for than Xenomystus nigri. Wild specimens reach a maximum length of 30 centimeters, though aquarium specimens more than 17 to 18 centimeters are rare. I've maintained 10 in a 600-litre aquarium from youngsters for 5 years, all of which are now identical in size, just a smidgen under 15 centimeters. I'd recommend a group of at least 8 individuals for a starter, which may seem a lot for a 120 by 45 by 30 centimetre aquarium, but with good filtration and maintenance this is achievable. Many authors mention problems with aggression in smaller groups reaching maturity. However, in my experience, the aggression shown has been 0, and I really do mean 0. Part of this could be due to the large group, as there seems to be a few line between a shoal and few rivals. I suspect that another secret of success is hidey holes. My aquarium is absolutely rammed with intricate chunks of bulkwood, creating a maze of nooks and crannies within their home, which I highly recommend prospective knifefish keepers try. Regular trips to the surface reveal the fish's need to take in atmospheric air, even in well-oxygenated situations. As for accounts of them being nocturnal, apart from when feeding, my observations couldn't be further from the truth. My fish are, and always have been, out and about constantly. Admittedly, my aquarium is not brightly lit, and I assume this encourages daytime activity, but I'm certain that the large shoal and myriad of hiding places gives them added confidence. Tied up in knots. My knifefish are not housed alone, and actually share their tank with no less than 7 reedfish or ropefish, Herpetoichthys calabaricus. Like the knifefish, these are also able to take in atmospheric air, but with more specialized breathing equipment. Breedfish are related to the bichids, Polypterus, a prehistoric group of air breathers that contain in their ranks some voracious and costly tank busters. Reedfish have a more sensible price tag than bichids, and tank size requirements are the same as those for knifefish. Their wilderness habitats are also pretty similar, though their prey is usually a little larger, so this precludes any smaller fish as potential tank mates. Anything too large to be considered as food will be ignored, though. The maximum length of these snake-like oddballs seems to be around the 40 centimetre mark, and the 7 I've kept for the last 5 years range somewhere between 28 to 35 centimetres. The common expectation is for a fish that lives in perpetual hiding. In my experience, despite not being as out and about as the knives, there's usually always a couple on view, snaking their way through the water, while a couple more negotiate through the ample decor. The beige, yellowish-orange colour makes a nice contrast to the plain dark brown of the knives, as does their shape and polar opposite way of swimming. As with the knives, there's some mention of increased aggression as they age, while other authors claim them to be peaceful at all times. The latter has been my own experience, with no aggression noted towards each other or the knifefish. These almost reptilian fish with their ancient fleshy lobed fins are fascinating, but coupled with their calm nature and low demands, they can make a great introductory species into the world of oddballs. As for feeding, both of these fish have similar dietary requirements. Any meaty frozen foods are accepted, and both easily weaned onto appropriately sized carnivore pellets. A firm favourite for both is freeze-dried tubifex worm cubes. In a 120cm tank, along with 8 knives, I would not hesitate to add a quartet of reed fish. I am aware that this breaks most of the usual recommended stocking limits, but with an eel-shaped fish, the rules can be bent a little, especially with an oversized filter, ample turnover, and regular water changes. Although I've kept fish constantly over 40 years, and during that time I have dabbled with many exotic, rare, and hard-to-maintain larger oddballs, I still find myself transfixed to the knife fish and reed fish tank. It's their ease of care and their constant activity, their style and grace. If you opt for a tank larger than 120 centimeters, then you will be able to add other species too. I suggest the equally easy to keep African oddball, the butterfly fish, Pantodon bacolzi. While not as active as the others, it is certainly unusual and will fill the upper layers of the aquarium, as it's a surface dweller and it won't give you any bother. Of course, you aren't obliged to stay African. You could try any peaceful fish which requires the same water conditions and is too large to be considered food, nor will hurt your reed fish or knife fish. Or you could, of course, just add more reed fish and knife fish. That's what I do. Oddballs to avoid. As a beginner, there are some fish that will simply be beyond your skill set and or budget. There are some classic mistakes that you do not want to cut your teeth on. Electric eels and electric catfish, rarely seen in stores, both will reach hefty sizes and can deliver a life-threatening electric punch. Arowana, fabulous fish with real dragon appearances and totems of good fortune across Asia. These fish are huge, messy, powerful, and incredibly demanding. Brackish fish. The likes of scats and monos are adorable, and juveniles are frequently available, but as they grow, they need salt levels that are hard to get right. Plus, they get big. Mud skippers. Who wouldn't want a fish that lives on land? The problem is that without land, they'll soon perish, and they require an advanced setup simulating a tidal zone. Gars. Lepisostius look like thrilling predators when small, but they don't stay that way, soon getting well over 60 centimeters and needing colossal aquaria. Stingrays, despite being every YouTube fish celebrity's fish of choice, these are big, messy, and demanding fish with the ability to really hurt you. Lungfish. Here's a fish that will literally take a finger off you when it grows, aggressive, solitary, and becomes absolutely massive. Why not consider some of these? Catfish. From the quirky upside-down catfish to the cryptic sand-dwelling banjo cats, many mid-sized silurids are oddballs in their own right with unusual shapes and lifestyles. Spotted climbing perch. Denapoma acuta rostri is a shy and retiring predator that thrives in exactly the sort of layout that the reedfish and knifefish enjoy. Attractively marked, not too tricky to feed, and with a real perch feel about them, these 15cm mid-water dwellers could be a perfect centerpiece. Spiny eels. Macrogranthus eels, not the large tire track or fire eels of Mastacembulus, have cheeky characters and are forever exploring. Just keep the tank well covered, as they'll find any small openings and make a dash for it. Fact file. African knifefish. Scientific name, Xenomystus nigri. Pronunciation, Xenomystus nigri. Size, 30 centimeters wild, rarely even 20 in aquaria. Origin, widespread across Africa, including Cameroon, the Congo, Chad, Gabon, Liberia, Sudan, Benin, Sierra Leone, and more. Habitat, slow or still and heavily vegetated waters strewn with debris. Tank size, 120 by 45 by 30 centimeters. Water requirement, soft and acidic to slightly alkaline water, 5.8 to 7.5 pH, 2 to 18H. Temperature, 23 to 27 degrees Celsius. Temperament, will eat tiny fish but usually peaceful. Feeding, prefers meaty, fresh and frozen foods like prawn and fish. Will also take carnivore pellets. Availability and cost, surprisingly easy to find, starting about £7 each. Reedfish or ropefish. Scientific name, Erpetoichthys calabaricus. Pronunciation, Erpetoichthys calabaricus. Size reported to 90 centimeters, barely reaches 30 centimeters in aquarium. Origin, Western Africa, including Angola, Cameroon, the Congo, Benin, and Nigeria. Habitat, swamps, ponds, pools, shallow regions with lots of plants. Tank size 120 by 45 by 45 centimeters, unless the fish grows over 30 centimeters, in which case aim for 150 by 60 by 60 centimeters. Water requirements, soft and acidic to slightly alkaline water, 6 to 7.5 pH, 4 to 18 H. Temperature 24 to 30 degrees Celsius. Temperament, peaceful as long as it can't fit other fish into its mouth. Feeding, prefers meaty, fresh and frozen foods like prawn and fish, will also take carnivore pellets. Availability and cost, often found lurking even in relatively unspecialized stores. Prices usually starting from about £12 to £15 each, pending size.